In this video, I am going to run you through updating the Datadear Actuals workbook with your company's financial data stored in Xero using the Datadear toolbar in Excel. First, make sure you are logged into Datadear by clicking on the DD_accounts worksheet. Next, go to the Datadear tab in Excel's ribbon and click Login. Enter your login credentials in the dialog box that appears and click Login. Now we are going to create a table in Excel using Datadear that holds your chart of accounts from Xero. Still in the Datadear ribbon, click Select Organization. I am going to select one of my fictitious companies that I have set up in Xero. Next, click Select a Data Table. Scroll towards the bottom of this list and under the section Systems Configuration, select Accounts. Another dialog box will now appear. Untick Remove Empty Columns and click Current Sheet. Datadear will now retrieve all of the accounts in your chart of accounts from Xero and display them in a neatly formatted table which we can later use to build our reports in Power Pivot. Next, we are going to create a table that holds your company's tracking categories that have been set up in Xero. Click on the Datadear_tracking worksheet, making sure that the company you selected in the last step is still selected in the Datadear ribbon. Click Select a Data Table, scroll to the bottom of the list and again under Systems Configuration select Tracking Categories. A dialog box will appear, untick Remove Empty Columns and click Current Sheet. The same as with the chart of accounts, Datadear will now retrieve your company's tracking categories from Xero and display them in a table. Now we are going to create a profit and loss report in a tabular format. Click on the DD_PL worksheet, and as we have done with the last two tables we created, make sure the company you selected in the last step is still selected in the Datadear ribbon. Next, click Select Report and scroll to the section Datadear Reports. The report that we are going to use is called Profit and Loss Multiple Periods and in curly brackets New. After you click this, a dialog box will appear. This includes parameters to be input by the user. Any parameters that can be selected using a drop-down box or date selection can be selected using a cell in the workbook. We can of course easily select our report parameters using our mouse like this. However, as the workbook is going to be routinely updated each reporting period, we want to be able to get our parameters from cells in the workbook. This is where the settings worksheet comes in. We will start by linking the date selection to our report date on the settings worksheet. Click the second icon that looks like a small spreadsheet with a red arrow inside and click in the box that appears. In here we are going to use the Excel text function to get the report date on the settings worksheet in a format that Datadear will recognize. Type equals, then the word text, open brackets. Now click the settings worksheet and select the cell that contains the report date. Now type comma, quote, followed by 3 M's, space, type 2 Y's, quote and close brackets. Click OK. You will now see the date box contains the formula we just typed. Next we will link the period. Click the spreadsheet icon to the right of the period drop down, press equals, click on the settings worksheet and select the cell under the report date named period and click OK. We want to leave tracking options 1 and 2 blank. We now have the option to tick or untick 6 boxes, which are Standard Layout, Include Budgets, Report Layout, Payments Only, Periods as Rows, and Detailed Report. We will leave these set as default apart from periods as rows. Running the report with this box unticked will produce a report in a traditional profit and loss format with a column for each period. We need to tick this as we want Datadear to produce a report in a tabular format, meaning periods will be in rows instead of multiple columns. This will make things a little easier for us later on when we want to actually create our final report using Power Pivot. Next, we select the spreadsheet icon next to the periods drop-down, and like we did earlier, type in equals. Click on the settings worksheet, and this time click the cell adjacent to P&L comparative periods and click OK. Leave order as it is, and lastly link total periods. Again, clicking on the spreadsheet icon, typing equals, click settings, and click the first grey cell adjacent to the number P&L previous periods. Click OK. Now click current sheet, and Datadear will get your company's profit and loss transactions from Xero and display them in a table where we can see we have periods in rows and 4 months of transactions up to the reporting date that is shown on the settings worksheet. Lastly, we're going to create the balance sheet table. Go to the DD_BS worksheet. Make sure that you have the same company selected in the Datadear toolbar. Go to Select a Report and scroll to Datadear Reports and click Balance Sheet Multiple Periods. As we did with the profit and loss report, we are going to link the parameters in the dialog box to the settings sheet. Starting with the month, click the small spreadsheet icon to the right of the drop-down box. Click inside the next box that appears and type equals text, open brackets. Click the settings worksheet and select the cell that contains the report date. Type comma, quote, MMMM, quote, close brackets. We are going to do the same with the year using the same formula as we just did for the month, but replacing the 4 M's with 4 Y's. Leave tracking 1 and 2 blank, tick periods as rows, and leave the other boxes as they are. Now, click on the small spreadsheet icon next to period. In the box, type equals and click on the settings worksheet and select the cell adjacent to the balance sheet comparative periods box. Leave order as it is, and lastly click the spreadsheet icon next to the total periods. In the box, type equals and click the settings worksheet. Click the second grey cell adjacent to the number of previous balance sheet periods. Click current sheet, and Datadear will load your company's balance sheet transactions in a neatly formatted table. Now the workbook has been set up, I'm going to show you how to refresh the data contained in the workbook, for example at each reporting period. To do this, go to the settings worksheet and change the report date. If you are starting a new financial year, change the start of fiscal year date to the first day of your new financial year. Next, go to any of the worksheets that contain a Datadear table. Log into Datadear and select your Xero company from Select an Organization. Still in the Datadear toolbar, click Refresh and select All Sheets. A dialog box will now appear displaying the Datadear tables in the workbook. Here you are able to change the organization for each Datadear table or change the organization for all Datadear tables. You can also select which tables you would like to refresh the data for. The more tables that you have selected here, the longer it will take Datadear to retrieve the data from Xero. Therefore, I recommend for the DD underscore accounts and DD underscore tracking tables to be unticked unless new accounts have been added or changed in your chart of accounts or tracking categories have been added or changed in Xero. We now have the option to append or refresh the tables. The difference here is that the refresh option will refresh all of the data shown in the table. I consider this to be the best option as it will update any past transactions that may have been changed or deleted in Xero, as well as pulling the latest transactions from Xero and populating them in the tables. The downside of this is that it takes longer for Datadear to refresh transactions when compared to using append. The append function is faster because it only adds new transactions to the Datadear tables that aren't already there. For the purposes of updating this workbook, I do not recommend using this option because if past transactions are changed or deleted in Xero, they will be ignored, leaving the outdated and incorrect transactions in the Datadear tables. Now click Refresh, and Datadear will refresh the tables in the workbook using the updated report date on the settings page. Thanks for watching this video. I hope this has helped you to understand how the workbook is updated and how to pull data from Xero using Datadear. I will be making another short video soon on how to dynamically connect to this workbook with a separate spreadsheet and how to transform the data using Power Query and Excel. If you have any questions, please drop me a message via my website using the link in the description below. Many thanks.